Hey, welcome, Timothy. We're a couple minutes late here.
Yeah, you're good. My apologies. Yeah,
Oh,
it's not going to let me do it for some reason.
no, it's all
Um,
right. For
yeah,
whatever reason, it keeps kicking me out too on Instagram. So we're still sorting out the technicalities of StreamYard. It's a fun little
come
streaming
back
platform.
one here.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Dynamic Change Management Podcast. My name is Dyllan Matt. I'm one of your hosts. This is Timothy Bergquist, my guest host here tonight with me. This is the second official episode of the Dynamic Change Management Podcast. This is a place where you guys bring your questions and we bring the solutions or facilitate the solutions anyways. Last week we talked about love. I think it was 2 weeks ago now. Last episode we talked about love. We looked at the ins and outs, kind of looked at it from every angle. This week we were looking at jumping into fear and sort of, I'm a bit of a, not everybody likes him, but I like Tony Robbins. He's got a good vibe and he's doing some good things for people. And he talks about fear and the acronym of fear being face everything and rise. In those four little letters, you can easily package the hero's journey, the entire cycle of living and being. We got 4 seasons, right? That we go through 4 quarters in our football games. 4 is a significant number for us. So facing everything in our lives head on, regardless of what it is, regardless of what the energies feel like at the moment, face it, understand it, face everything, and rise means, to, at least from my perspective, you guys will have your own kind of definitions for this, but from my perspective, it means to both embrace, accept, discern. I guess it's more than both, but discern and choose the highest story or the highest perspective or translation for yourself possible. Why is that? When we choose wisely, when we choose well, when we use our gray matter and our cognitive facilities to create an acronym like face everything and rise, when we choose the positive, we empower ourselves, we move ourselves forward on this journey of life. And this is the essence of life. A plant grows from the ground up, its roots grow down into the ground. They don't recede into itself, it recedes out into the 3D world. That's growth. That's what we call growth. So there's our little intro monologue today, unplanned and ad lib. Timothy, welcome. What's on your mind today? What's spirit been dropping on your heart to bring to the people for fear? What do we need to know? What don't we not understand? What do we think we understand that we really don't?
Well, if you want to go with fear, for me, it's going to be a lot about how we are connecting with ourselves. Once again, just like with the love thing. But the big thing is what are you feeling fear of? I spoke with a very intelligent person earlier who said fear of failure, which really came to my mind because everybody fears that failure, right? I've got so many more, but that's a big one to start off with because we fear failure. We don't want to be the person who's seeming if they're not as good or good enough, which is not the truth because we all have different things to offer. So that was a big one to start off with.
What's failure then? So, like, can we camp there for a minute? Do you mind? I'm one of those guys. I'm like gonna poke that. What is failure? Because is failure the same thing to everybody else? And is failure does that mean crisis necessarily, or what does that mean?
For me, the failure is something that is not even possible. So when I look at it, this is one of my favorite quotes. Once again, I got a lot of quotes that I wrote down. It's one of my favorite ones. I got to turn this music down here in a second. I apologize about that. I forgot I still had it going. You can shoot for the stars and hit the moon.
Yeah, like
But you didn't fail. You made it to the fucking moon. Excuse my language. Excuse my language, everybody.
No,
My apologies. My apologies.
disclaimer.
But you made it to the moon. You know what I mean? You're shooting for the stars. You made it to the moon. Now you've learned how to make the turn or do something a little bit differently. You're learning, you're engaging, and you're growing. And that's very important for how we're trying, I'm hoping, to change the planet, if you will. You know what I mean? Like it's very much like there's no failure. It's about how you are growing and the moves that you are making through that growth.
Hmm.
That's the way I look at it.
So why do people fear, if it's not really failure, then, or some of us can recognize that it's not necessarily failure. I see you got your tea going too. Me too. I'm a tea guy. I'll just tell you. Where do we get the idea of failure if we grow from everything? Why do we fear it so much if we grow from everything that we go through?
I would say how we see others around us, or what we've seen, or the pain that we've been through, which is another part of the fear that I've got wrote down. You know, the things that you go through. Then the next thing is, you know, we've been trying to grow through this, but I remember I've got it right here. It's still there, and I fear that pain. You know, and it can
Pain.
really put you in a place of, you know, misconjunction, if you will, of thinking that you're gonna you get fearful of it happening again, compared to, hey, this was an actual good thing that I did, even though it was something small. I used to make my bed every morning just to make sure that I accomplished something. I need to get back into that. So you know, it's very important. You know, those little accomplishments. I can't get this thing off my screen. It's killing
So it sounds like you're describing for yourself what failure or fear of failure kind of plays out like in your life. What are some of the other reasons that people would, fear failure? Is it, are we so connected and worried about what other people think that we can't, try to do something different? Is that, are we still like monkeys basically being dragged down the ladder and sprayed with water when we're trying to get the best fruit from the tree? And are we still competing really for space to be ourselves, or what's it
Yeah,
about?
I think it's more that the latter. I think not. I mean, like the late, you know, the last part. I think a big
No
part of
pun
it is what
intended.
we've done. Yeah, because I said the last.
Oh,
Yeah,
stupid
yeah,
Theo.
yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's more about really stepping into who you are because of what you've been told and what you've been through. I got to get close to this microphone, I'm sure. Anyways, just what you've been through, because what happens is we fear being good enough, right? Like we like when I say failure, it's about being good enough. And sometimes with everything put in our face, you think, oh wow, man, I'm not as good as that person. I'm not as good as that person. I'm not as good as that person. My parents told me this. My parents told me that. And that's really runs into that fear of failure or not being good enough, if you will, even though everybody has something to offer, like I was talking about earlier. But it comes down to a lot of emotional running, I feel like, when it comes down to the fear of failure.
So it also sounds like we're comparing and we're measuring ourselves. Like if we talk about what the roots of fear are, how does it make sense for us to be measuring ourselves if, like, I'm just gonna make this real straight up. You're the guy with the bandana and the things on his neck, and I'm the guy with the dress shirt or whatever, and the glasses and the nappy hair or whatever. How, when we're so uniquely different, how, we are the same in a lot of ways, but when we're so uniquely different, why does it make sense sort of to some of us sometimes, or all of us sometimes, to compare ourselves with each other when we're really, it's apples and oranges when you start comparing? So why do we, why do you think those connections are the way they are? Why are they such a limiter for us?
I think it's an understanding of judgment. So, you know, you get told who to be, you get told how to be, but some of us grow through that and understand that there should be no judgments of being who you are. And so the fear is still there because you're looking out on other people, and that's a big part of it. I'm pretty sure that's one of the things I've written down here. But it's about really, you look out and you think you're not good enough because you have been judged your entire life, and everything that you see, you're judging. But the process comes from understanding that you are good enough. You are already that person. It's like we were talking earlier today. You know what's going on throughout your body. You know what's happening. You're putting it out there. You know that you're pretty much the universe yourself, so you're moving through it. But the big part is how you are seeing or perceiving what's going on around you, and that can really affect you in a negative way if you're allowing those things to feel as if you were being judged as a lesser. And I think that's a big part of it.
So then I guess my logical brain question wants to put the next one in order is like, how do we stop that? Or, how do we change that and not necessarily measure ourselves and not project that or limit ourselves in fear? How do we make that shift? If fear is limiting us, how do we shift from that and move it from a negative to a positive?
Oh, listen, that's going to be the most difficult thing, right? I mean, that's kind of what I got into last night. I mean, sometimes we flow into a space that we forget that we are being the ones judgmental or fearing what is happening. And so it's a big deal because that's going to be one of the most difficult things to do. I would say, truthfully, the best way is to understand, once again, that you are enough. But truthfully, it's a very difficult thing, I would say, to step into, because you have to realize in the moments of being judged, not to take it harshly and be fearful of what they're saying or take it in a hatred way, because they might not know not what they do. They don't, maybe they're just doing it because they're in a bad place. And so it's a very stigmatic place to be in a fearful place of being judged, because I mean you can walk down the street and see 50 people, 48 of them are probably going to be judging you. You know what I mean? And so it's very difficult to get through that, but at the same time, it's the trust in yourself. It's finding your heart and understanding who you are that allows you to step in to a better process.
So how you described walking down the street with some people, it's an interesting dynamic. We're kind of a metaphysical podcast, so I take the opportunity to poke at the energy. What's going on with the energy dynamics? I think we talk about ourselves as orbs or something last time, or something like that, little star fruits or something. What happens to the energy dynamics when we're in fear, or we're behaving from a place of fear, responding or reacting?
Oh yeah, that's going to be bad, right? So that's always going to be bad. If you're in a fear management place or a fear perspective of energy, it's going to be a bad thing. And I'm not trying to, unless you need to be in fear, and you know what I mean. But the big thing is that that's always going to push out a different type of energy compared to what would be if you were in a focused and a controlled environment of self-care or understanding of what's happening around you. Fear can really drive you into a place of negativity very quickly. Extremely quickly. But at the same time, fear can be a good thing, because if you need to be in fear in a moment to get out of a bad situation, well, that's the good thing. So it's all about the emotional understanding of the moment. That's the biggest part about it. But the people around us, I wouldn't say is so much, the judgments. They shouldn't cause you fear. You should understand that that's just who they are. So that, to me, that's not going to be something that causes fear. So, yeah.
If we were to compare, I have this it's more unique and specific to you, because I think I know a little bit about you now. We've talked about love and fear. We talked about love being an emotion, but then have feelings attached to it and stuff. So would you say fear is an emotion, or is it a feeling? Where does it land on the, how do people understand it, the difference between an emotion, or say energy that's just available, and then something that's qualified in a given direction that may not necessarily be helpful, let's say?
I would definitely 100% call it an emotion. As a matter of fact, I've got one of my things down here that I've got wrote down is like a fear of a loss. And that could be an emotional connection to a person. That could be an emotional situation to what is happening right around you. You have fear of change, very difficult. So I call that's an emotion just as well as love would be, or you know, even coming into sadness and not I could tell you some people are going to be having fear from not being able to control everything. Okay, and so there's so many different ways, but fear is definitely to me an emotion. Some people fear connection. And there's so much that you could go through with fear that it's not even funny, but it's definitely to me an emotion. um, and I think it's something very important that people need to feel, understand, and then come to grips that it's happening, because it's one of the hardest ones, if you ask me, to be able to control. Between that and like a sadness, they're very, very hard to like really control those emotions. Yeah.
Hold on to that for 1 sec. Fear and sadness. Okay, just keep that in. So think about that for a minute. Don't let us forget that. I just want to acknowledge the comments because we got some people here in the comments. Kat is here.
All right.
Floyd is here. Kathleen Murphy is here. Looks like I'm here, inside or outside here a couple of times. Kat says, hey. Kat's talking about fear of letting others down can be weighed emotion, more so than just a fear of failing at something. So it sounds like, the fear of holding the energy of someone else as well, or someone else's, fear of being responsible for that energy or those outcomes for that experience for those other people, and potentially letting other people down. Sounds like it's an additional fear to failing is what.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I agree with that 100%. Like not being good enough for the people that you want to be there for. Absolutely. Like letting people down, like you said, or like she said. Yeah.
Why
I
do
feel
we
like you're holding somebody back that you really want to see succeed.
why do we worry that if they're responsible for their lives, why do we worry that we could hold them back by something that we do? Where does that come from? How does that work?
That's just complete connection or understanding of love, like we were talking about last week. It's that connection of love and understanding that you want to see this person be great. Now, at the same time, they are the ones in full control of their lives. But if we don't feel confident in who we are, we might feel as if we're holding somebody back. And so that's a big deal as well. Now, the step into trying to connect is very important on love itself, but also the fear of letting them down.
So this question just kind of dropped on me for whatever reason. Maybe that's the two-sided nature of reality. Let's say faith. Okay, let's go back to fear for a second. What the energy dynamics? Our energy body. You talked to me before about being a feeler, right? So you're a feeler of that. So let's start with, how does fear feel?
Oh, good gosh. So when you're in fear, you almost lose all aspects of what is the love of who you are. You almost run, you almost forget. I don't see anymore. I mean in wise of, because I see energy as well. So, but yeah, I feel the energy. But yeah, so if I'm truly in fear, like truly in fear of where I'm at in a moment, I pretty much lose myself completely. Which normally I'm never in fear. Just because I've been through so much. But yeah, fear is definitely a thing that affects me in a way of, this is not good, I'm out type thing. And I'm the type of guy who will go jump out of a plane if you want me to. You know.
So
Yeah. So yeah.
For a visual, sorry, I didn't mean to just jump over that little. I'm going to toss myself out of the plane. In terms of the energy body, that again, that energy dynamic. If we can picture ourselves like like a star, maybe not little, but a sphere or a star or some kind of a infinitely projecting out, radiating being of some kind. Mostly, I think, probably from our center of our heart, or whatever, if we're living from that place. What's happening to our energy? Is it getting bigger or smaller? What's happening to our energy? Yeah, with fear.
It's going to get sucked into your heart instead of allowing your heart to play out. So if you're in fear, the energy goes opposite. It looks different. So for me, when I'm seeing the energy wrapped around people, I can see, if they're like in a bad place, it'll go down. If they're not feeling confidence, they're not their chakras aren't moving outwards and around. They're just moving differently. But if you're in fear, this is not going out. It's going in. It's very different. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think it's more of a process of, it's almost like taking a deep breath and taking your energy backwards. I know that sounds weird, but yeah, that's what I see if somebody's in
fear. So it's sounds like a withdrawal, like recession.
Yeah.
Whatever. So maybe rather than transmitting, we're more receiving or reacting. Rather than proacting, we're more, reacting.
Yes. Absolutely, 100%.
So not as empowered. So again, for more visual stuff for people, if we're to put that on a scale, and we're to let's say, let's weigh them. Okay, let's weigh love on this one and fear on this one. Which one's? And I'm just going to ask this intuitively. I'm not going to really set this up for a right or wrong or whatever. Which one's going to be heavier? If this one over here is fear and this one over here is love, which one's going to be heavier?
I'm going to go with, from what I'm understanding, love is still going to be heavier. It's still going to pull in more power and allow more strength to be given into who you are. Fear is going to take away from the love, but it's not going to be heavier. That's what I just got. So
sounds like you're saying love is the more substantial, weighty force of the two. It sounds like that you would say that if we were to put the two of them on a teeter-totter, love would go, ha ha, sucker.
Yeah, so my big thing is like the biggest part here is that there's so much more fear being pushed out and based around us that everybody is more scared than loving. And so it's really affecting the way that we're living our lives. But love is actually stronger if we could all come together in that truth and understand each other. It would be a much, much stronger force, yes.
So let me ask you, if let's again, I'm a sort of a science dude a little bit here. I like the infographics or the demonstrations. If we're to put it on a spectrum, what is the distance, let's say, between love and fear? What is the catalyst? What's the mechanism? What's the space or whatever you want to call it in between the two? Where we can feel one or the other, but what is the space in between? How does one go from one to the other? What is that transition?
Well, now you're running through trust, confidence, understanding, focus, and you're getting through. I mean, how many different things could there be? I mean, you could go through from those two. You're talking. I don't know all the words. I don't have the vocabulary for everything that would be in between there. I mean, seriously, that's so much. You're talking. Oh my goodness. But you're talking about many of things that matter and add up to it, right? You're talking about what people have gone through, how we've moved on, what we found out about our past, what we have found out about, our generational past. Like you're talking, there's so many things that go through your mind. You think about the quickness of how much the mind works. There's going to be too much there. And that's why the trust is coming through today. Like you're moving through today. And that's what's so important, because otherwise you're going to keep running from what is already right in front of you, which should be what is love. But there's also fear that surrounds you that you have to see and go, that doesn't scare me anymore. I'm not that worried about it. I've made a move into my life who I am and feel confident in what I am connected to. And that's going to be a beautiful way to see it,
Yeah, I like it. Keep it going. That's good.
Yeah, that's just how that works. I wish I had every vocabulary word for you in between every single those two things. I mean, it's just.
So let me ask you this: if someone is in a place of fear, or let's say this, how would we know? Okay, beyond the feelings, if we recognize we're in this place of fear, how do we switch ourselves out of that to start heading the other direction towards love?
Oof, that takes time. And I know my thing here is I'm saying time because I know I'm talking about being in the right now. But I can promise you that this has happened to me very recently. And I can promise you another thing. It takes a minute because we have to realize what was great compared to one negative moment. Because one negative moment will put you in fear compared to 100 great moments. And we were kind of programmed to remember the negative. And so if you got to take the time to say, hold on, wait a minute. Okay. And you got to slow down and you got to see and you got to feel confident in it. It's like if I was to draw a circle for you, if I have this circle right here, okay, and all this is positive, and that one star right there is negative. You know what you're going to remember?
Oh boy,
that one star. That's
I am.
what you're.
Are you telling me
Well,
that's
I'm just saying. That's what I'm just telling the people. You know, it's just how it works. Yeah. So,
Why
it's
is
just
that?
I
What is that about?
think it's how we were programmed from when we were younger. I mean, you think about it. We've grown through this, and everything around us is negative. I mean, the news is on all day. I mean, I don't watch the news, but the news is on all day
It's
when
good
you're a kid, right?
broadcasting.
Yeah. I mean, all you're going to see is negativity. You know what I mean? Yeah, on the news. That's all you hear about. And if you look, every state, you can go to every state, and they're almost playing the same stories at the same time.
Oh yes, I know.
Yeah, it's
Have you?
all negative stuff.
I'm
Everything
gonna
is
get weird
negative.
for a second. Have you seen the TikTok video? I think it's some pretty famous dudes talking. I'm not gonna drop any names or whatever, but they're showing screenshots of. I think it might have been Rogan or something. Or whatever was showing. They're showing screenshots of like thousands of networks all saying the exact same language, exact same. Just a dude in a suit saying the exact same thing across
Same
all
thing.
these to propagate some kind of a rhetoric that most of us or any of us who are like starting to pay attention are like, that is not something I'm bringing into my grid anymore.
Right. Yeah. I don't do the news anymore just because that's what it's for. It's to create fear, you know.
It's
It's
just, yeah, great
literally there
skills.
to keep
Yeah,
people in line, if you will.
yeah, I'm with
You
you.
know. So
Yeah, let's change the algorithm. Let's change the topic.
yeah.
I'm going to jump into the comments here. So just to back up a little bit, Kat's been jumping in. Awesome. Thank you very much, Kat. Like, we super appreciate you. She says, fear keeps us small. We need energy to expand. So we tend to be stagnant when we're trapped in fear, which was super cool because it came through right around the time where you were saying, we were talking about that star fruit receding into itself and like potentially even creating an inward vortex or like a negative pressure, say, in the world. She went on. Carrot jumped in. Carrot 33 jumped in. She said, we were chatting a little bit further there, and she said, in transmitting energy, there is intrinsically vulnerability. If someone has experienced being drained, if fear is triggered, the giving and sharing stops to protect oneself, aka energy, to conserve, right? Because like we're just talking about, we are both faucets. Like think about when I'm talking. Dylan's talking. There's vibration going out, all that kind of stuff, and it's taking up space. Someone else is receiving, listening. It's an ebb and a flow and an exchange. It's in most harmonious systems. I'll just get technical here for a second. In most harmonious systems, even in things like music or electricity, setting up electrical transformers and things, there's harmonics. They need to be in tune, and waves and pitches, so that they don't happen in such a way that they create chaos. You ever been around somebody that you ever had a really good friend, or maybe back to high school or something, had a really good friend that the two of you got together and it was just freaking a disaster, a freaking mess every time the two of you were together? It was just like, you had the blast, you had a great time, but it was like shit was getting broken, shit was getting lost, you guys were whatever. It was not the greatest scene. Tons of room to grow and opportunity to learn what we call maturity and stuff like that, but probably for the long run, it's not sustainable behavior. Anyway, tangential monologue here, guys. Kat goes on to say, forgiveness of self allows us to move out of fear and what could happen. So when we were talking about love and fear, what's in between, I remember Kat throwing that out, that forgiveness was one of the, because we're talking about words or whatever, what would be on the way. And so this actually takes me back to what I was thinking about before, is faith. Where does, you mentioned trust lots. So lots of us, I'll just say certain words maybe have loads on them. Some people are like, trust. I don't trust. I don't like that word. I don't trust people or whatever. I tried trusting. It was not good for me. Other people might be like faith. I tried faith. It slapped me in the face. I've tried these things, but I don't like faith or whatever. We all have these kind of different meanings and different loads on words. How does fear fit with faith or trust? I kind of see trust as kind of part and parcel with faith. It's you gotta trust the process. You gotta believe. Sort of the image of like Indiana Jones and the search for the Holy Grail comes into mind, where he takes a step and there's no ground there. He just steps off the cliff, and yet there's something that holds him up, right? And he's like, his heart skips a beat or whatever, throws out some sand, and there's an invisible pathway. This is trust. This is, so when I draw that out for us, what I'm kind of getting at is, like, we talked about love and fear. Where does faith fit on that spectrum? How does trust fit with this, or how does fear fit with how does fear fit with trust? Am I asking that right?
Fear fit with trust. It's more about trusting in something that. So sometimes we have fear to trust others. Trust is something that takes away fear, if you ask me. There's another another thing that I say is, you can believe, but if you think about it, belief means there's doubt. You're like in hope. It's almost like with faith, which is like trust. But then you have like, oh, I hope this works. I believe it's gonna work. So it's kind of like that. But when you truly trust or have that full faith, it's like, I trust this is gonna work. Like, you feel confidence and you're pushing forward with it, instead of pulling back and being like, I hope, or, so it's like one of those things. There's nothing wrong with any of the words. I do think that all the words are points of trying to be more positive, but at the same time, that's how I see those words. That's how I feel.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to touch on them, because they all seem to be in the woo-woo or in us metaphysical, spiritual, personal development, growth, whatever community. We talk about these terms, and I talk about light workers. I talk about all kinds of things. What do these things actually mean for us? So that's one of the reasons we want to look at these deeper. Like, we're talking about intuition, fear, love, but what is it? They're the most confusing, confounding things in the world. How do we really relate to these concepts or these constructs, and then put them into best practice for ourselves in our lives? So that takes me to this question: can fear help us? Can it serve us? Is there a good side to fear?
Absolutely. That's what I was talking about earlier. I mean, even in like the worst moment, that fear can put you into a better spot than where you're at. Even intuition, like you were talking about, can put you in a fear state where you go, this is not good. I should probably back out of this. You know what I mean? So it's very much, fear can absolutely 100% put you into a better place. Is it something that's going to serve you all the time for the greater good? I would say no, but it absolutely 100% can serve you for the greater good, because there's definitely points where you need that fear to feel and understand where you're at, and allow yourself to either escape that situation, if you will, or understand that it's happening over and over and over again, to the point where you need to take a step back. Also with fear, I think the big part is that if we look at why we're scared, what we went through that created that fear, that's important, because that allows you then to grow.
Okay, so do us a favor and dig into that. Why would we want to? How would that make us grow? And how would we go about doing that, diving into fear? How do we learn from it?
Well, it depends on what you went through, It's like we were talking earlier today about, my addiction and how I got through it and whatever. But you're talking, about if you're in a situation and it's fight or flight, you're gonna know, you got to get out. You feel me? But the big thing is what you've been through in your past that created that negative space. So how you grow through it is to understand why you were still fearful today from something that happened in your past, and why it still causes the fear and not allowing you to step out from the situation that you're in, or feel as if there's no reason. You just nest in it, and you're just like, it's okay, I'm always scared, instead of allowing yourself to grow from what happened and step into something new. And it's like we were talking about earlier, you're going through all those different reasons of why you can be afraid. And so one of the things is, what you've been through. It's your past. It's how you got trained to be, if you will. I'm going to say the word trained. I want you to, you got to look at it in a way of understanding that there is more things that you should be grateful for, and have the gratitude of what you're moving through and how you are creating a better space for yourself than worrying so much about what has happened. Because otherwise you're going to keep running away, like we were talking about with the love thing. You're running through the storm like the buffalo, running away from the storm. Buffaloes, they run through the storm because they know, I can just get through it and I'll be okay. And so it's like that type of thing. You got to get through what you've been through to understand where you're at. And that's going to be a big thing about the fear.
So why do some people choose to stay entrenched in fear, and why do others seem to, almost like eat for fear for breakfast, let's say?
Yeah, that's a question for them, to be honest with you.
What makes
Well,
us that?
I'll go to the addiction thing again. I mean, it took me forever because I was afraid to make that change. I was afraid to become who I was, and that was fear. So every day, ran right into it. Was trying to act like I wasn't in it and running away from it is what I should say. It's a whole thing, So I that's the best I can give, the best analogy I can give for it. But I really do feel like it's just some people just think that's where they're supposed to be instead of trying to grow or feel confidence. Once again, you got to remember, everybody goes through something different, especially as youngs, and so that could make a big difference.
I'm like running out of things to ask about fear. I don't know how. I think it's a good thing. If I'm honest, I think it's a good thing because, like, in one sense, it's a really powerful topic to dive into, but in another sense, it's really, like, if we look at the amount of it that's there in the world already, it seems like there's a lot of it. It seems like fear is a lot of what runs a lot of things. Like, why is it so prevalent? Why is it such a useful device for control, or device for manipulation, or device for convincing, or why? Like, why is it
You
like
just
that?
answered all of it right there. You just said it. You literally just said it. I mean, that was it. That's literally what it is. It's literally a way to keep people in line. And it's literally a tool to keep people even afraid of themselves and not thinking they're good enough. I mean, you literally just said the perfect words for it, if you ask me. And that's what they're doing. But fear can affect us all in different ways. So, like, my whole thing is like, even like the fear of wanting to make the change into connecting with all things is a big deal. Like, people are looking at it like, no, wait, hold on. What are we talking about here? This is not how this is supposed to work. People will fear even finding themselves.
Right.
And that's what I was going through when I was going through my stuff. I mean, you got, yeah, literally taking the time to go, you know what? I'm good as I am. They won't do it. They're gonna, and no offense to anybody, masculine, feminine, whatever. The women are gonna put on their makeup. They're gonna do their thing. I mean, even I use filters on TikTok. You know what I'm saying? It's a whole thing because of my face. It's a whole thing. It's we don't feel as if we're good enough because we are told that we're not from an early age, and that's fear, and that allows us to run and try not to feel as if we can actually connect to who we truly are and feel confident in ourselves. And that confidence is going to be keeping you from feeling the fear of loss. But it always happens. It's going to happen because of how we, and that's why we're making the changes that we're making now. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make these changes to allow people to realize that they're just as good as anybody else. You know what I mean?
So for those of us who do the work that we're doing, so today we've taken the, I hesitated even bringing up the topic and wanting to cover fear, but it's kind of cool that we'll get it out of the way at the beginning of the thing or whatever. But like for those of us that are, I don't want to say like working against fear or whatever, but like called to support humanity through and facilitate courage, let's say, and facilitate connection and understanding. For those of us that are called to do that or feel called to do that, what are the tools that we have at our disposal that, without training, without, what do we just naturally have as human beings for a capacity to overcome fear, to like, especially not just with ourselves, but in a group or in Walmart or whatever, in a scenario where we typically might experience it,
Yeah. So I would go all of the elements. But obviously, if you're in Walmart, you don't have the elements. So you're going to go, I would say, with breath and process, because that's very important. I have a really hard time around people sometimes, especially like, we've already talked about like Walmart, sometimes I have a hard time. But all the elements are the most beautiful things. So, I'm a water sign, but earth is very, very strong on me. I think we talked about this earlier. You're a wind sign, I think, but water helps you a lot, So it's very important. So I'm telling you right now, breath is one of the best ways. If you're in a moment, you can literally just close your eyes and hit breath. It's a slow meditation, but it's really good. You just run it through. I always go with the 2 up nose and 1 out.
Okay, let's do this. We might as well do this. Excuse me. Oh, my voice is a little hoarse. We did. This is exciting for me because it feels like, we got this opportunity to do a demo. I talk about being able to do these demos. So please lead us and take us through to this program.
All right. So it's very simple. So what I'm going to do here is you're just going to run 2 breaths. We can do multiple different ones. So I don't know who's all going to participate in this, but if you guys do, it will be fun. Especially here, this is what we'll do. We'll do 10 of the 2 in, 1 out. And then I want to go 10 really fast. Now, listen, the thing is with the really fast one, I want you to squeeze the after. Okay, so this is what I want to say the wrong word here. So I want you to, after you do the 10 in, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just show it real quick before anybody does it. Here, I'm going to show you. So we're going to go, okay, we're going to do that 10 times. And then we're going to go 10 times. And at the end of the 10th time, I want you to hold your breath and I want you to squeeze your
bum.
But yeah, there you go. Your bum. Yeah, I want you to squeeze it. Yes, yeah, I want you to squeeze it. But remember, some people can pass out from this, so I don't want you to pass out. So
so here's the disclaimer: anybody who's got difficulties with breathing, anybody who's got a respirator or on oxygen, or who uses what do you call it, a rescue inhaler or any of that kind of stuff, this is your beware. Please don't feel obligated to do this stuff.
Yeah, because what this will also do is it'll also help, especially at the very end, it also helps push the fluid up the spinal. So that's a good thing for awakening and things like that and moving.
Yeah, what is this fluid again? Tell us about these things, Mr. Guru. Tell us, what's the fluid?
Well, I don't know exactly what the fluid is called. I'm not really good at all that stuff, but it is the fluid that moves up the spinal cord. I can't remember what it's called, but it'll run up into, actually the Holy Grail that you were talking about is actually there's a symbol in the brain. So then it hits there, it'll get up in there. There's a lot of different things, a lot of different ways that all this can work. But the big thing is that breath work is a really great way to kind of stay calm, especially in moments. It's my big thing. I always do if I'm starting to like flip out, it's my big thing. That's my favorite. Just the 2 in the nose, 1 out the mouth. All right, so we're going to do 10 of those, and then 10 in, really fast. And then after the 10,
Squeeze.
squeeze. All right, here we go. So let's do this. Let's start. All right, are you ready? Let's do these 10 fast ones. Let's do this. Here we go, guys. Make it happen.
Whoa. Yeah.
Well, you're going to feel a little lightheaded. You're going to
Whoa.
feel it a little bit.
Wow.
Very good breath work. Run it through. Let it move through. And this will allow you to feel a lot more energy come through. I like to do that at the end of my meditations when I'm able to meditate when I'm outside. Very good breath work. But
That's
the
so
two
good.
in, one out is very good for times if you are in stress.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Instantly.
you feel that? I mean, you
Right.
feel it, right? I mean, you
Oh,
literally
so
feel
good.
it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's a whole thing. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so let me camp on there for a second. Lots of y'all know, most of us, maybe not most of us, but many of us know that breath is another word for divine. In some languages, it's the same word. I don't remember in Sanskrit what it is or whatever. I used to know in French as well. It'll come back to me as I do this stuff. But breath is sacred. So lots of people consider breath as God itself, the creative force itself. The Hawaiians, I can't remember, they say ho'oponopono or whatever. It's a sacred blessing of the breath, the divine or whatever. These some Aboriginal, I think we might have talked about this a little bit earlier too. Some Aboriginal belief systems, don't believe a lot of the Western philosophy. They're very elemental in the way that they think of their interactions with the divine realm. It's we are divine. This is divine. The shirt's divine. Everything is sacred. We're all sacred, with the breath being the basis for that. Without the breath, the bag, the flesh sack, the flesh bag just falls to the ground, whatever. So I'm going to jump into the comments here a little bit. I want to say thank you very much to everybody, Kat, and to Carrot, and to Kathleen, and to Floyd, and to you, Timothy, for today. Just going to touch on these comments real quick. Carrot says, hiya, Kat. And Kat says, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, as long as it only comes out to play when there is a true danger, it's an acceptable fear response. So she's talking about this 4, and it's cool how the 4 came up again in this episode. We started with 4 in the sessions and the seasons and so on. So it's like there's like 4 different aspects to fear when you look at. There's probably infinite more, but like we look at 4 basic ones in psychology and medicine and stuff. Lots of medicine traditions where there's some basics. Fight is like got to respond. Flight is get the heck out of here. Freeze is oh my god, shock. Don't know. Fawn, I think, is probably the people pleasing one. It's more placating and even putting the self potentially in more harm's way or greater risk of fear or whatever, depending on how these were programmed into you. Like we talked about before, Timothy touched on what our family upbringing is, somewhere around 0 to 7 years old, up to 12, even beyond. We're finding neuroplasticity goes much more beyond that. But lots of people are programmed with this responses. That's the normal response to things like getting your way, getting fed, going to having like proper meals, having friends, having interactions with other people. The normal for many people was not a great experience with a lot of these types of stimuli. And lots of times that comes from caregivers and so on, can be peers and other things. We talked about programming a little bit. I just want to summarize a little bit. Intuition, Kat says, gives us actions, words, or feelings, run, leave, or don't trust, not fear-based. So if we learn to trust our intuition, we stay clear of fear. Okay. So, and I think she's, again, yes, and to add a little bit to that, she's got fear in the air quotes again, meaning the kind of fear that paralyzes, the kind of fear that can be debilitating, not the kind of healthy fear that is tied to reverence or respect or understanding. There's a really fine there's a fine line when we talk about energy and balance, and that's where all these chakras are aligned. When things tip one way or the other, that's where the blocks can fall over. That's where sort of like we start to fall apart. Carrot says, fear is a self-protective measure, but in its exaggerated form, it prevents us from being open to the unknown and creates hypersensitivity to the possibility of painful experiences. So in many ways, again, to summarize, fear is like a gateway. It can be like a portal. It can be like a blanket, a heavy weighted blanket. It can be like a black shroud. In some instances, it can be that way. It can also be an enlightening. We talked on the other side of things. It can also, for those of us that have trained ourselves to understand that fear is just one response, and it doesn't have to have always the same story. We can face fear, face everything, and rise above fear. And we can actually, with our consciousness, our intuition, the teacher within, we can tell ourselves a different story than the one we were programmed with during that early phase of our programming, or youth, or what have you. It's not always youth. Just to be fair with people, some of us, like myself, most of my life I was not a fearful person. I wouldn't call myself a fearful person. I wouldn't call myself a super conscious person as a youngster with all these gifts and stuff, but I wouldn't consider myself fearful. Fearful kind of came with awareness later on, when I became more aware of consequences and things. So it can be kind of a two-sided animal for a lot of people, but the goal for us here is to shed some light on it and help to kind of take some of the scariness out of fear. I know that sounds like a crazy thing to be doing, take the dark out of the dark, but
Well, no. Also, she touched on the pain thing that I touched on earlier. Pain is something that causes fear. Like, so, that's, I've been through a lot of things. I had a lot of things go on, but that's why when you were asking me about the middle, I was like, there's so many different things. Pain's another one. Pain is fearful, and it causes fear. So, and we're trying to stay away from that because we don't want to be in pain, and so fear can keep us away from something that maybe we should be actually divulging into. You know what I mean?
100%. And when we understand how, again, back to energy, the whole metaphysics of this podcast is everything is transferred. So when we take good care of ourselves, if we are cognitively interacting with fear, consciously interacting with it, we can be empowered through fearful circumstances. And that is growth. That is where we get self-confidence. That's where we get resiliency. That's where we get all these lovely rewards that life has to offer us. But it seems like fear is the illusion, the Maya, the matrix, whatever you call it, program that exists for most people to come through into their fuller expression of their light body, the things that are meant for them in their lives. So I think Carrot now says, fear is a self-protective measure, but it is exaggerated form. It prevents us from being open to the unknown and creates, she said that one, so I read that one. Kat gave her kudos and said, Carrie's on the right track. And Carrot said, root chakra squeeze. So she was catching up with us when we were doing our breathing. And Carrot again says, yes, Kat, it's known as the shaman breath. So we're very blessed. I know that we're kind of making things rudimentary and fundamental in terms of the language and stuff, real simple. We want to, we're just kind of assuming that not everybody knows all this kind of stuff. So your guys' comments and the specific terminology and the, asking each other stuff and filling in is super, super valuable, because, we're just two dudes that have our perspectives and our language. Sharing this stuff with you, this is what matters for us. This is why we're doing it, so that you guys have a place, a voice, a forum, something. So you're heard, and the efforts that you're putting in, the studies that you've done, they're valid. And, we're growing together is what I'm saying. So thank you for contributing today. I think we're coming to around the end of where we're going to wrap up. Timothy, if you got some things that you wanted to cover that we didn't necessarily touch on today, I want to thank you very much for the awesome blessing and sharing, the more private parts of yourself with us, the sacred details and vulnerability, and then also your private practice. Guys, I'm going to say I'm guilty of this, but I'm learning and I'm giving grace to myself. But these things that you're sharing with us, your energy and your participation and the practices and stuff are very, very valuable. You have all put so much energy and time and effort and your soul and all that, your spirit, your life force prana into devoting yourselves to growing. You have an understanding, we know, we can feel it, that you have an understanding that you are not leaving yourself the empty cup. You're learning how to fill yourself and go out into the world and fill up other people, live from that heart-centered place, understand the dynamics that are, in our day-to-day, the stuff at Walmart, the people at Walmart, the politics on our TV, the stuff with our brothers and sisters, our families, and so on. You guys are living the real, where the rubber meets the road. So we want to acknowledge all of you that are doing this work, you light workers, you people who are actually walking the walk and not just talking the talk. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. I'll just completely say the same thing pretty much, but I'm not going to just repeat it all. But thank you guys so much. You're not only helping us, you're allowing us to continuously connect. And I'm not talking about through social media. I'm talking about through life and understanding. And so it's very important that we are all coming together, because it's the connection that allows us all to grow from each other and see what we can create. And that is a beautiful thing. So thank you all for being in here. And I'm grateful for all of you. And I hope you guys got a little bit of a message from today or this evening. And continue loving life. Continue loving life. It's a beautiful thing, as hard as it gets. It's a beautiful thing.
I had one more comment that I'd missed here. Kat had said the breath work Ty was doing is to send the cerebral spinal fluid to the pineal gland.
Yeah.
Activate higher states of consciousness.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Very well said. Very well put together.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I couldn't remember the name of the fluid. I didn't think it was going to the pineal. I thought it was going to the pineal. I thought it was going to the other place. But yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, it just pushes it up. It helps open up that third eye and feel connected.
That was beautiful. I very much appreciate that. I don't know that I do that often enough. I think it's I do lots of deep stretching and yoga type stuff, but I don't think I do that level of breath work. And I think that's just awesome. Like,
yoga is going to be a big thing. I'm about to start getting into it because I just found out, because I was talking to my uncle. He said there's actually 11 different types of yoga, or like steps, instead of everybody just does the main ones. And he's telling me to look into it. He's real big on it. He's like 70 and he's still doing it. But I'm going to start looking into yoga a little more. He's helping me out a lot right now. So yeah.
That's awesome. So before we wrap up today, I just want to iterate, this is the Dynamic Change Management podcast. We're talking about real people, real issues in the world, real fundamental stuff. We look through a metaphysical lens, sort of a spiritual lens. We try to break things down nice and bite-sized and simple. We are doing this podcast currently twice monthly at 7 p.m. It's, either the 1st or the 31st or whatever, right at the end of the month or beginning of the month, and the 16th. We'll let you guys know the dates and so on. Again, we just want to thank everybody for showing up. You can check us out on all the social media. So you guys are logged into some of our portals. We would very much appreciate if you would share our profiles and bio and all that stuff with your guys' networks. Push out our content if you find it's valuable. If you don't, then obviously don't. But we could use your support, is what we're saying. If you find value in what we're doing, let us know. We really want to hear from you. Your comments, your support, your feedback, and all that stuff is super valuable. Like Ty said, it's part of how we continue to do the work that we're doing. It helps us to know that it makes a difference. So feel free to reach out to us, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, WhatsApp, TikTok, all that stuff, and DM us LinkedIn as well. I think we broadcasted too tonight. So congratulations on us for making this a multi-stream. This is our first. So acknowledging ourselves, and again, acknowledging our partners, our families, our support systems, and of course, source, and just the breath, like we said. So I'll wrap this up. If nobody has any questions, comments, concerns, I know I'm a long-winded wrapper-upper guy. Sweet parting is such sweet sorrow. Thanks very much, Timothy, for being with us. Awoke Bergquist here, and on Instagram it's Awoke Bergquist 22. I'm Dyllan Matt of InsiderOutside.com, Metaphysical Magazine, Lightworker.insideroutside.com, the Practitioner Hub. We house a bunch of people like ourselves. We're building out the platform. We again can use your support there. We'd love to see you and answer your comments in the magazine and all that kind of stuff too. So we love you. Good night. Thank you for being with us on a Wednesday.